Grief connection. I am so excited to hold space with Lisa. Lisa, how are you doing today?
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Opie.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited for our conversation today. I connected to Lisa through my event that's happening in February, an evening with Opie and friends. And I have been so excited to hold space with you, watching your journey, your voice, your expression, and your clarity in how you communicate things has been really beautiful for me to hold space and witness. And I want to share with everybody your journey, who you are, and your beautiful family. So, Lisa, would you like to tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do just to start off with?
Absolutely. I am a mom, I'm a wife, I'm all of those things, but life served up something different to me about 10 years ago. And at that point in time, my biggest struggle was trying to figure out how to coordinate four busy people to go on a hot holiday, all the schedules, all the things. And then one night in December of 2015, we had the police show up at our door.
Oh,
Officer had his hat in his hands, his voice was trembling, and I actually didn't even have to hear the words that came out of his mouth. But our daughter, Katie, who was 17 and a half years old at the time, had been involved in a head on collision and she died at the scene. And as any listener, anybody who's listening, can even just imagine if this hasn't happened to them, it really divides your life into two very distinct timelines, before and after, you know. Um, and at the time we had a 15-year-old son. He's now 25 and thriving and doing all the things that parents want their kids to be doing. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of rough patches, the three of
yeah.
us. We grew apart a lot before we grew back together. It's been a journey. I mean, they call grief a journey for a reason, but I've tried my best to help others as much as I can. When we lost Katie, it's still shocking for me to say this out loud, but I had friends, family, neighbors, people that I thought loved me saying really interesting things, not always supportive, probably meaning well, but your life is
Yes.
over. Your
Yes.
marriage is over. Your son is probably going to grow up with lifelong mental health challenges, might be a drug addict, and this was where I was getting these messages, and I just thought, no, can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just because you think that or the society thinks that doesn't mean it has to be my path. So I very, very, very deliberately have chosen, and it's a choice every day,
Yes.
to find hope, to
Mm.
look for hope, to choose to spend my time and my energy with people that lifted me up instead of painted these bleak pictures for me. So, really, in a nutshell, that's been my journey.
Oh, I love it because there's so much to unpack just even in that. Because I find in these life overhauls, these shattering moments, it's complex layering, and there's never just one piece that we're navigating. It feels as though it's so many things that are just being ripped apart within us. Does that make sense for you?
100%.
Wow. Now, before we kind of dive into that, I want to know about Katie. I want to know about who she is and how she lit up the world with her soul on earth.
Katie was a spark plug. She was, for a 17 and a half year old girl, ironically, I never worried about her. She had her head screwed on straight. She was always working hard at school. She had a 95% average. She just received an entrance scholarship into nursing, like full scholarship. She'd come home from school and say, Mom, I got 98% on my, I don't know, take your pick, algebra, economics, whatever. And I'd be like, oh, I didn't know you had a test. That's great. I was the parent that didn't know how to log into Power School or whatever it's called now. because I didn't have to. She was stubborn. Oh my God, she was stubborn. I just thank my lucky stars that she always made good decisions, because God help you, if she was going that way, if she decided she was going to do that thing, just get out of her way, because that's what
Wow.
she was going to do. She had great friends. She had a terrific boyfriend. Like, she had all the things going on. Um, but yeah, she was stubborn. She was determined. Oh, and this is another podcast topic entirely, but Katie had a serious addiction to Sephora makeup.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
spent hundreds, hundreds of dollars in Sephora. In
Good
fact,
for
my
her.
husband had to take her bank card away from her on more than one occasion. But she was just a fun kid, and was just goofy and loved practical jokes and just a really bright light.
Oh, it sounds like you guys were really close as well. Like it feels like the bond was really a great connection.
I think we did. I'd be lying if I said we didn't have arguments and, mother daughter tension and all that stuff. But I think at the root of it, our souls were just deeply connected.
Oh, that's amazing. That makes me so happy to hear. I find these souls that have a short time on life have such an expansive experience. And a lot of times they are accelerating in so many things and have their hands in so many experiences that it's just incredible to see that they lived a great life.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
we were
that's
really
amazing.
lucky. We got to do so many things. We traveled to a lot of great places. We were out for dinner with our son just this week, and we were kind of reminiscing over all the great things that we got to do as a family. So I feel
Oh.
very, very grateful for that.
That's incredible. Now, I find it's interesting that everybody was kind of painting a picture on your experience, as most people do, with judgment or expectations of either collapse or your son becoming an addict or your marriage ending. I find that a lot of people get lost in the stereotypes and they commit and they own them. And I love that you were able to kind of disassociate from that and find your own path with that. Now, how was the first year navigating these people that we thought were going to be there for us? Because I find that we're in a moment of grief and then we really kind of see the community around us in a different light and perspective, while we're just kind of trying to get oxygen in the first year. We're just trying to find our normality or even just our new reality. Does that make sense for you?
Oh yeah. And I think you said it perfectly. The people that we think will be there for us, or that we
Mhm.
really hope will be there for us, for whatever reason, I think it's very normal that they're not. It took me a lot of years to figure out. I'm pretty sure my mom and dad aren't going to be listening to this, but I grew up in a loving home. I grew up with loving parents, and if I had something going on in my life, I could always go to them. But this was the one time in my life when I couldn't.
Mm.
When I let the tears flow, I would either be patted down, it's going to get better, or, they're just filling up the space with words. Or I found that I was having to lean in and support somebody
Oh,
instead
that
of me being, and I feel selfish even saying that I needed it. I needed the support, but that's kind of the way it was.
it's so important though for people to hear that because they rob people of their grief experience. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you get so nervous to go to the grocery store and run into somebody and not knowing if they know or are going to ask, and the anticipation builds up, and then you're in that moment, and then you're having to consult somebody when you're barely able to hold it together. And it just feels like people need to be aware of that dynamic and how to hold space and be present with somebody. Are you
Yeah.
able to share that, like what you needed? Because I think people don't realize the importance of just listening.
I was just going to say, your physical presence, and then just zip it.
Yeah.
just zip it and let that poor grieving person just let the words flow out, let the tears flow, hand them the Kleenex, get them a glass of water. Maybe nod your head that you're listening, but there's no words that can make it better.
Yeah.
We just, I think it was Tom Zuba who said that grievers need to share their story over and over and over and over and over again until they don't need to share it anymore.
Yes. I love that. It's so powerful. That is powerful because people need to know it's okay just to listen.
And
And
yeah, it's awkward. It's
yeah,
awkward. Even as somebody who works in the grief space, who's, been on both sides of it, I still find it awkward to sit quietly and just hold space. So it's not easy, but it
yeah,
is so important.
it is. Um, and as you kind of went through this, and probably a lot of people kind of left, I'm assuming in the first year, you probably saw a lot of transitions within that year to two. Did that happen for you?
I don't know if I would use the words left, but I would say pulled back.
Ah, I love that. Thank
Just
you.
people who were totally uncomfortable and they just pulled back,
Yeah,
didn't know what to do or say. So they did nothing.
yeah,
Didn't come around, and now that I'm in a quote unquote okay space, some of those people have come back just because I don't need to sit and cry all the time. I still talk about Katie a lot, but it's just a different energy, I think, that I bring
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And so they're more comfortable. So they kind of
Oh,
come back. But
interesting. And do you remember anything that really stood out for you? That was something that somebody did that supported you, that was really impactful in a positive way.
sure, it's so interesting. I'm sure everybody's got a story like this, but people that I would call perhaps more of an acquaintance, even more than a friend or a family member, just people that you know of just
Yeah.
bubbled to the surface.
Wow.
I call them earth angels because they just, even though they may not have gone through what you've gone through, or, on the outside don't seem like they would have all of this knowledge or experience, just know the right thing to say or do, or, just a text that they sent,
Yeah.
or, and just not afraid to be there.
I love that. That makes me so happy that you had those experiences because they can be so meaningful.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. And going through this, I keep being shown year two, the importance of year two. Because for me, this is the hardest year when I'm supporting individuals through grief because the initial year, everybody shows up, everybody's present, everybody holds space with you. But by then, people are starting to navigate their everyday lives and giving more and more space in between. And we're kind of left after the whirlwind of how do we move forward? Are you able to speak to the year two for you?
Yeah, I think year two has brings a lot of complexities to it. First off, I think year one, we're holding our breath. We're still in that numb, fog, survival mode, and you kind of get to the end of year one and you think, ooh, I did it. I'm still standing. I made it through Christmas and their birthdays and my birthday and blah, 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 all the things. And you kind of let your guard down a little bit because you think you've been through the worst.
Mm,
And then the seconds start coming and they pack a punch. Every one of these milestones or days of celebration, they mark the passage of time.
yeah.
My person's still not here. And like you say, everyone goes back to their own lives as they should. I mean, they've got to keep their jobs and they've got to, take their kids to ballet and do all this stuff. You get it, but it gets really lonely.
Mhm.
And you feel like instead of having to navigate it with a little bit of support the first year, you're kind of navigating it all on your own now in year two.
That's a lot. It's a lot to kind of face that and hold space with it because you're really trying to figure things out and be present with all the emotions you're holding too. And not only that, you're trying to pick yourself up every day and figure out what that looks like, but you've also got a child here that is grieving, and you've got a partner that's grieving. And I imagine each person's grief is processing very differently.
Oh, yeah. The three of us could not have done our grief more differently. You know, just crazy. I mean, I laugh about it now. It wasn't funny at the time, but even at the 6 month mark, if you would have asked me, you know, if my marriage is going to be okay, or, you know, how my child was going to turn out, I would have said, this is just a freaking disaster. No, my marriage is not going to last. My kid, I have no idea what's going to happen to him, because at 15, you think of a 15-year-old young man, they don't have a lot of tools in their tool belt. And, you know, again, sort of joking, sort of not joking. Like, he had mad in his
Yeah.
toolkit. He had pot in his tool belt. And what I saw on the outside was defiance.
Yeah.
You know, and we've since talked about that. And I feel horrible that, you know, as a reasonably intelligent human being, I didn't see beyond that.
Hmm.
He finally decided to go for help therapy. I'm going to say 7 years in for him. He was ready then.
Great.
And he would stop by after his sessions. And, you know, I wasn't grilling him, but if he still needed to talk, I was happy to listen. And that's what came up, is all of that defiance was what he was using to outwardly show his grief, right? Because
Yeah.
boys don't cry.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got that going on one end. And then my husband, bless his heart, you know, I needed to talk about it, and I needed to, you know, have all these little Katie projects on the side. And I was very, I'm going to say, active in my grief. And my husband, who thinks in spreadsheets and is very logical, he would come home. He was working part days, and I would literally get the hand from him, because I'd be like, so, you know, I'm going to do this thing with the high school. And, you know, I just kind of verbally dump all over him, and he'd give me the hand. He'd disappear downstairs and watch sports every night. So all three of us were in just very, very distinct corners, doing the best we could.
Yes. I love that you recognize that, and people to hear that, because really you are doing the best you can in those situations. And just recognizing that and knowing that it's one step at a time,
Yeah.
that's huge for people, just to know it's okay to just do your best in those moments. Because I find people really have expectations around this process, and I'm like, can we just get rid of that crap already? There,
Yeah.
like, there's no way that you're not being brought back to day one at any point during your experience. It's the ebbs and flows. And I think people need to really understand that is, it's not a progression of, not getting emotional, that we can be brought back to those significant moments at any point. Are you able to kind of hold space of how that experience is for others to just understand? Because I find a lot of people don't get that process.
Yeah. It's, you know, it drives me nuts to think about some of the theories that are, you know, bubbling around out there in the universe, like the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
Even myself, I felt like I was doing grief wrong for a long time, because I thought, you know, we had to go through these clean, neat, tidy little boxes, and we progressed through one, and then we were done with it, moved on to the next. And it's not like that at all. And it's not a straight line. Every day is not a little bit better. Every month is not a little bit better. It's a freaking roller coaster or a bowl of spaghetti. It's just the most mixed up, illogical thing that you can imagine. And I think just the fact that people put their feet on the ground every single day
Yeah.
is progress. And you're doing it. And we, the grievers, have to take that pressure off of ourselves, that we should be a certain way, or we should be doing something, or, you know, we shouldn't be doing something. And as the supporters, just recognize that grief is really messy.
Yeah, it's chaos, is it not?
Totally.
It's just mayhem, really.
So if you are supporting your friend and one day he or she's doing okay, and then maybe you see
Mhm.
them the next week and they're a hot mess. Yeah, welcome to the life of grief. This is
Yes.
normal.
Yes, I love that. Did you ever get to a point where you had to deal with a lot of anger too? Because I find the anger is very fascinating for me.
It's funny because when I reflect back, I say, no, I wasn't angry. And my husband gives me the side eye and he's like, yeah, you were. You know, I remember hanging up on my parents, and I'm not that kind of a person at
Yeah.
all. Um, and I would get really angry just at Katie being gone. I
Hmm.
wasn't angry at her. I wasn't angry at anyone in particular, just angry because this is unfair. It goes
Yes.
against everything that we think to be true.
Yeah.
But I think as well, I think anger can be very confusing for the griever or the supporter
Hmm.
because when we think of grief, we think of sadness. We think of, those kinds of feelings. So when the anger shows up, we're like, what's that doing here?
Yes.
Again, we paint it as wrong
Yeah.
or unexpected,
Yeah.
where it is completely normal to be angry. And, as long as we're cautious how we're dealing with that anger, we don't want to take it out on our loved ones or
Yeah.
anything of that nature. But, use the right way. Anger's okay.
Yeah. I feel like it's so important to purge it and
Yes.
find a way that is, drains you. For me, it was weightlifting. I was massive on that. And it was like you could deadlift until there was nothing in the tank and then you could think again.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So it's important for people to understand the process of it and flow with how it's directing you to connect to yourself and how to address that. I think that's so important for people to find that out individually for themselves. Through this process, how did you connect to Katie? Because I find that our loved ones have this beautiful way of showing up for us and letting us know that they are okay without needing a medium. I am not one to push mediumship the first year because I find people have an expectation of having closure through that. And that's something that we have to find individually. But I love hearing how those we love connect to us. And I just want to know how she showed up for you in some beautiful experiences.
Well, I still can hardly believe this myself. And if I hadn't been the person that was there, I probably wouldn't believe it. But the night that Katie died, so we had the officer come to our house about 10 p.m. And then, we had a barrage of people that came to the house after. And I finally sent people home, I don't know, let's say 1 a.m. What do you do? My husband and I got ready for bed and got in bed and just kind of laid there like a couple of logs, like just in shock, really.
Oh,
And I remember clearly laying in bed and at the wall that was across from the foot of our bed. Keep in mind, we'd been living in this house for 15 years at this point. There was light on the wall. All the lights were off in our room,
yeah.
but it was
Oh, I
like
got
this
chills.
gentle ebb and flow of light,
Yeah.
not disco lights, not anything. And I said to my husband, what is with the lights? And of course, being the logical guy that he is, he says, oh, it must be from the streetlights. Well, our bedroom is in the far back corner of the house. Like I say, we've been there 15 years. These lights have never been there, but we're in this shock. We're in this fog already. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember my husband fell asleep for like minutes, like just minutes. And I could tell by his breathing. And as soon as he fell asleep, against our open white door to our bedroom, I just sensed two spirits. Now, 25 years prior to that, my grandmother showed up for me in exactly the same way the day she passed away. So here, and you're like questioning everything and you're like, oh my gosh, like clearly I am hallucinating. I'm pinching myself. I'm poking myself. And then I said, Katie, is that you? Knowing full well it was her, knowing full well that she came with my grandmother. And I'm poking myself. And at this moment, the whole room is filled with her favorite perfume, which was a perfume from Sephora. And again, I'm poking, prodding, poking, and I could actually sense that the one more petite spirit was moving towards the bed. And as soon as I had it clear in my head, I am not hallucinating. This is happening. This is Katie. And kind of got this sense that she was saying, Mom, I'm okay. I've made it to the other side. And as soon as my brain accepted all of this, gone.
Wow.
So the next morning, I didn't mention anything to my husband. But the next morning, I don't know, mid-morning, my mom and dad came over. And I don't know why, but I chose to tell my dad, I said, so this thing happened last night, and kind of told him. And he says, when we went home last night from your place, I went out to stand on the balcony, which faces a dark lake. It's at the back of the building. There is no lights. And he said, all around the bottom of the balcony, he says it was like there was dancing twinkle lights. And we kind of figure it was about the same time that we both experienced that. So that was like the biggest thing that I've gotten from Katie, but there have been other moments like that. And I guess I feel really fortunate that I had that interaction with her the night she passed, even though for years I have believed that there is more to life than our human brains think. I look at death as a doorway to the next adventure, but it really shaped my grief. And it just made me realize Katie's still here. I just can't see her. I can't hold her like I used to, but her energy and her spirit are still here.
That makes me so elated to hear that. My heart is just swelling because that is something that I really strive for in my work, and to receive that in your own individual way from, your daughter is so beautiful. Not only you, but your parents as well. Like, that is incredible. And I know she must show up in so many extraordinary ways any chance she gets. was
She is a big energy. Yeah.
right was your husband and son able to connect in their own unique ways and have connection points with her too?
I don't think quite as much. I don't know if they're quite as open to the whole
Yeah,
idea as I
yeah.
am, but there certainly have been moments that they've both shared with me.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Now, I love that through this, I feel like your purpose, your voice has been empowered through this and supporting others. Are you able to speak to the alignment and the drive to do your work and the experience of it for you?
Well, like I mentioned, when Katie died 10 years ago, the books that were available, the podcasts, I don't even know if there are any podcasts, but all these resources were kind of all the same, doom and gloom. And I thought, I already know that part. Like, I just kind of made it my mission, if you will, to maybe change the conversation around grief, and maybe not, throw toxic positivity all around with sparkles and glitter, but just to help people see that there can be hope and that we can look at this tragedy through a different perspective. And I've always imagined Katie kind of looking over my shoulder. What would she think? And I just want her to be so dang proud. And I just want, if possible, to take this terrible thing. And if I can use it to help other people, and to hold space for them and to take my experience, my learning, what's helped me, to share that with other people, that's kind of what I've leaned into. And just to be as authentic as I can with it. I don't have to sound the same as all the grief gurus out there. I don't have to write the same books, but to share my voice as authentically as I can, because that's the way Katie was. Like it was, Katie was kind of a take it or leave it kind of a
Yeah.
girl. Here I am. You may not like me, but here I am. So that's been my approach.
I love that. And you've done training through David Kessler, right? How was that
Yes.
for you? Did that really
It was,
resonate?
yeah, there were parts, I mean, just like any
Yeah.
course or any training. Um, but there were things that I will never forget. Like one of the first exercises we did as a group. And I, at first, when he was doing this, I thought, are we really doing this? We would get together in small groups and he would share, or he would have us share rather, what are the best things that have happened in your life? And like most people, birth of our children or gone on this certain trip, whatever it was. And then what are the worst three things that have happened to you? And I thought, oh my gosh, like, don't you know? Right? Like, we're all
Yeah.
here because of these terrible things. But at the end of that, when we were sharing as a group, I thought he did this so well. And I don't know if I can truly articulate the beauty of the moment, but he said, everybody has got terrible things that happen, and you kind of realize when the whole group is sharing, like people have lost their entire homes and every single belonging in a fire. They may have lost loved ones in that. Um, hopefully this isn't traumatizing to your listeners, but there were rapes, there were, all these terrible, terrible things, children that have gone missing and never been found, and on and on and on. And as tragic as all this was, at the end of this, he said, my whole point of doing this is to show you that sometimes there is worse stuff out there than what you're carrying. And it was just a bit of a perspective shift for the group,
Yeah.
and to feel connected, I guess, on some level that we're all carrying something.
Yeah.
Nobody gets through this life without something.
Yes. Isn't that interesting how we're all kind of dealing with grief in our own unique ways, but we don't recognize that within each other.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. I think that's the most interesting part about my work. I mean, I have been dealing with things through my life and I didn't really get that full perspective of it until a year ago going through counseling, and she looked at me and she's like, this is all grief connected. And I said, right? Because you usually just connect it to a loss of a loved one or an experience, but really it's the versions of ourselves that we're saying goodbye, or the pain that they carried for us to be where we are now. All these different layers of it. Um, was it was it kind of an experience of not only going through the layers of loss with Katie and the life dynamics, but our versions and our family story beforehand for you? Are you able to share a little bit about your process or what kind of helped you through that experience?
I think loss of identity is
Mhm.
something that so many people struggle with. I know I did, you know, little things like the most obvious stuff. We were a family of four or a family of three. When I would bomb into work and, people talk about their kids all the time, I would inevitably have a Katie story about something, and then that stopped. Um,
Mm.
I think we all have this preconceived notion of what our life's going to look like. One day my daughter will get married. One day she will have children. She will convocate from university. She'll, do X, Y, and Z. And for a variety of reasons, that may or may not happen. But I have just felt that everything that I thought to be true about myself, I have had to face that head on and either pivot or accept that this is the new Lisa, and The old Lisa, I don't know that she exists anymore, to be perfectly
Mm,
honest.
I
Yeah.
understand that. I understand that. And what do you think were the most positive experiences for you in processing and understanding everything that you were experiencing? Because I'm a huge advocate of counseling. I think that
Yeah.
is so important to have a safe environment for somebody who's not emotionally involved in your situation to give you perspective or illuminate or hold space with you. What do you think were the most beneficial things that you found in your journey?
Hands down, therapy.
Yeah.
Hands down, number one, something I recommend to everybody I work with. Those folks have the special training. You and I talked about this before, but we all come into our grief scenarios with life,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes in life there's other traumas, there's other beliefs that may be inaccurate, there's all kinds of things, and if therapists have these beautiful gentle skills to peel back these layers so that we can work on our grief. And I think that that is number one, hands down, the most important. Second one for me was meeting a group of bereaved moms early on in my journey. Like we talked about earlier, some people I couldn't cry around, some people I couldn't just express myself around. Whereas these bereaved moms, I mean, we could say all the inappropriate things. We could laugh at inappropriate things. We could cry. We could not cry. And I just felt so comfortable with them. So that was huge,
Yeah.
huge. And you just have this instant connection when you meet somebody who is going through the same thing that you are. That was huge. And I would say the other thing, kind of what you alluded to earlier, and that was taking care of my own physical well-being. I have been an advocate of exercise, well-being, all of it,
Yeah.
most of my adult life. And for me, it was running on the treadmill. I mean, I'm not a runner. It is not pretty to see me run, but I would go downstairs, crank that treadmill up, and I would run and 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 run until I couldn't run anymore. Till I was basically dragging myself up from the basement using the banister. But it gave me that teeny tiny itty bit of hope,
Yeah.
that if I could get through that, I could get through the day. And I kept doing it every day because it helped me, right? And if I
Yeah.
missed it for a couple days, man, I could feel it.
Oh, it's shocking how much physical activity to move the emotions
Mm-hmm.
impacts you. You just it helps so much to integrate whatever you're experiencing.
Well, and I heard a fellow speak, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. He is a grief yoga expert that actually works fairly closely with David Kessler. And if you're listening, you probably know who he is. But he talks too about yoga and how grief will actually hide in the corners of our body. And that by doing yoga, we almost can squeeze those emotions out. I know
Yeah.
when I went to yoga, those first few years, inevitably, no matter how my day was going, I would cry. But it was a good cry. Like it was stuff that needed to come out. And, so if you're listening and you think, oh, I can't run or I don't want to lift weights, try a yoga class.
Yeah.
Try grief yoga if you can find it. It is
Gosh,
amazing.
even just walking outside in
Yes.
nature and just grounding in that experience. I mean, just getting the earbuds out and not the distraction and being present can
Mhm.
really change an experience of the day. It's so impactful.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's beautiful. And then now looking back, because 10 years, like that must be a flash,
Yeah. It's so cliche, but I'm going to say it. It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at the same time.
right?
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself 10 years ago if you could hold space with you then?
I would say two things. One, you're going to survive. And two, be patient with yourself.
Hmm. I love that. That's so beautiful. Um, the journey really changes, I find, after 5 years. Do you find when you look back, was there a point in time that things kind of shifted or a deeper understanding of self or the experience overall kind of changed for you? Like, are you able to speak to people kind of looking ahead? Because I find in the beginning, we're like, I can't imagine a day of actual joy or being human again or going through the grind without just collapsing every single day. And, it's not to rush it, but to know that you will experience and you're safe in it. It's not letting go of those that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to share a little bit about that just for individuals kind of at the beginning stages of their journey?
For sure. I think it's very normal to think, I will never, dot, dot, dot. I will never smile. I will never laugh. I'll never go on another holiday, whatever it is, fill in the blank, normal.
Yeah.
But if I may, I'd like to share a story of an instance that happened to me that just really made me look at the whole concept of grief and joy differently. And after we lost Katie, the three of us found that taking short trips, getaways, afternoons away, like just snippets of time together outside of our normal habits, outside of our home, were really helpful in helping us grow back together. So the summer after Katie died, we were on Vancouver Island and we loved to hike. And we had just finished a hike through the beautiful redwoods on Vancouver Island around Nanaimo. And I don't even know, who picked this hike, because all of a sudden, it was like a fairy forest. Like, it was so
Oh,
magical, this forest. And all of a sudden it spits us out onto this beach. And it was the end of July. So perfect weather, gorgeous. And the weird thing is this beach was completely isolated. Like, there was nobody there. I looked to the left, looked to the right, and I was like, okay, I guess this is our beach today. We walked out, kicked our shoes off. Like, the sand was so soft. And I remember writing Katie's name in the sand. And my husband and son started walking down the beach. And I was just puttering around, found a heart-shaped rock, all these things. And then I was started to walk kind of in, half in the water, half on the sand kind of thing along the water's edge. And, look to the left and here's this gorgeous redwood forest and the sand. And off to my right was the sparkling water. The sun was just that perfect temperature. It was like a warm blanket on my shoulders. And I remember tipping my head up to the sun and soaking this moment in. And
wow.
then the guilt came, like,
Oh,
bam, in the gut. But then it was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Just because I smiled for a minute, did that mean that I forgot Katie? No. Did it mean that I wasn't grieving her? No. So I kind of looked at it like, okay, well, if my joy doesn't cancel out the grief, why can't I carry them together? They can coexist. I've got two hands, I can carry them both. And that was kind of a big pivotal moment for me that was like, yeah, you can smile, you can laugh, you can go on holidays. It doesn't erase the grief. You may as well have a little fun when it presents itself.
that is incredible. What a powerful moment. And that realization, right? Because you do feel the guilt, you feel the I'm letting you go, but it's really not. It's holding space with those that you love in those moments of joy as well. Lisa, thank
And I would
you.
even go so far as to say that when I am having a moment of joy, whatever, as big or small as it may be, I feel closer to Katie.
Yes.
I feel like she's here saying, yes, mom. You're embracing my energy, my joy for you. And I also feel that on the rotten, stinky, gross days where I'm just grieving,
Yeah.
I don't feel her as much, if at all.
Yes. And it's fascinating to me as a medium because I've learned through connections with spirit, that's how they connect to us when we're in our loving state and our joyous state because our frequency is high. And then when we're in the pain and the lower frequency, they can't connect to us as much. They can't support us. It takes a lot for them to be able to provide those signs or different things. But I also find it fascinating because they want us to live.
Mm-hmm.
They want us to experience this human. I always get the messaging, which is hard to share to people. You're here to live. I want you to live and experience this, even though I can't be with you in that space. I'm still here. And they show you the funniest things in sessions. I have one woman that they were reinforcing her stubbing her toe on the island, a paper grocery bag, bottom falling out, and looking up at tulips. And she laughed because she said that was the day before. And I was like, well, your husband was with you, laughing his buns off, right? So it's just recognizing too that the more we hold space, they can join in the experience with us. And I love that you were able to hold space with that and connect with Katie deeper for it. Are
Well,
you
and call me crazy, but again, I imagine her kind of watching and interacting. And I figure while I'm here, why not give her something amazing to watch?
right? Gosh, I cannot imagine. I just keep picturing her shining her bright smile with shoulders back every time you're supporting people or sharing the stories or the ripples of gifts of giving back to the community. Are you able to share how you honor her in individual ways? Because I really love seeing what I've seen the last little bit. It made me so excited, Lisa.
We could probably spend the next 2 hours going through all the things that I've tried to do to honor her. But just a couple of real quick ones. You know, so she passed away in December, and I had been working with the guidance counselors, to help support my son and just the scholarship we created and various things. I felt like I was at the high school all the time. And it came to my attention that there are, not surprising, a number of students that just don't have the funds for the fancy dress and the big updos and all the grad expenses. And I thought, well, I know people. So I just put out a Facebook post and just said, I'm just going to try and collect some gently used dresses and shoes and anything else that you might have around your house that could be used by these students. So we created Katie's Closet at Campbell Collegiate, and it's a private little space in behind guidance counseling. Nobody has to know that anybody's going back there. And over the years, I think we've donated, gosh, hundreds of dresses and shoes. And
Oh,
and then there was a couple of years where I had a really tall, slender young lady. There were no dresses that fit her. And I said, okay, let's go shopping. A
oh,
friend of mine is a hairdresser. And I said, here's a gift card to go get your hair done. Or, any of these things. Like I always try to embody Katie and
yeah.
who she was. She loved hair, she loved makeup, she loved dressing up. Okay. How can we help other girls, in that realm? I worked with, in quotes, the city to put lights up around the ring road where there weren't any, where Katie's accident happened. That was a passion
Wow.
project. Just recently, it was her 10th anniversary, and I just asked people to do acts of kindness on that day. And it was amazing the things that people did in Katie's memory.
That's incredible. Can I just say too, I went to Campbell.
Did you?
I did. And the guidance counselors there are so incredible in supporting you in your individual journeys. So I love that her soul is connected to there because I had some beautiful gifts in that school as well. And just to hear the impact that she's holding there, that is just beautiful. I really love that. I I couldn't imagine how much you guys will celebrate together and catching up one day, and how proud she is of her mom. And you, of course, radiating the love for her always is just, it's just beautiful, Lisa. It's beautiful to see that. Are you able to share one of your favorite stories of her in her journey?
Yeah, I think this story just perfectly paints a picture of who my daughter was. And it kind of brings a whole bunch of stuff together. So, as I mentioned, Katie loved Sephora makeup. And there was one night she spent, I don't know how much time getting ready to go out with her boyfriend. And he had to cancel at the last minute. He had wicked migraines and he canceled. And she came out and she says, Mom, doesn't he know I have $75 worth of makeup on? Like he maybe doesn't know that, sweetie. And then there was another night. She was a hostess at Houston Pizza. So oftentimes she would come home with a little, cardboard takeout container. And she was waiting for her boyfriend to come and pick her up. So she was standing in the front window eating French fries out of this container. And what she didn't know was that the boyfriend's car wasn't working that day. So his dad, being the nice man that he is, said, "Well, take my car." So she's watching and watching and watching and watching for this car. And all of a sudden, this car comes down the street in front of the house and pulls into the driveway. And she looked at me with this look of disgust and rolled her eyes and says, "Oh, he brought the Porsche. Now I can't eat French fries in the car." So those are the kinds of things that would come out of her mouth.
Oh, that speaks volumes to the strength of her soul. I'll tell you that. Did she work at the Quants location for Houston?
Yes, yes, she did.
I used to work for Jim as well.
Oh, and you know what? She always said nice things about Jim. She really enjoyed him.
Oh, he's the most incredible. I worked for his father as well. They are an incredible family. So that is amazing. I'm dying laughing because I'm seeing flashes of all of this as you're sharing. It's the beauty of being a medium, right?
Mm.
Oh my goodness. Well, Lisa, can you tell people how to connect to you and the different ways that they are able to experience your voice and your spirit?
Absolutely. I primarily work with other bereaved moms, and I have a podcast, and it's called Child Loss and Grief Support for Moms. Pretty easy to find everywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have one on one services. I have a small group that I facilitate. And yeah, that's what I do.
That's amazing. We'll include all the links below for everybody to connect to you one on one. And I just have to thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story, and your heart with us all. I feel very honored to hold space with you today.
Well, thank you. This has just been a beautiful conversation.
Oh, now I just want to check too on our closing notes there. How do you feel grief has really changed who you are in this world?
Well, I think that grief has made me a better person. I think it's made me kinder, softer, gentler, more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. And I just think grief does change you, and it's kind of your choice how you allow it to change you.
Yeah. Yes, that's very, very true. And what is something that has changed within you on how you want people to remember who you are in this journey on earth? Because I think, if anything, we realize how human we are in this experience and how we want to connect with people. So, how has that shifted for you?
I guess I hope that people look at me as someone who is not going to let grief destroy her, and that I hope it, like I say, will make me a better person, and that I can be that person because I've been through it, can hold space for others and support others on their journey.
I love it. And I just That has been such a beautiful gift holding space with you today and holding space with Katie too. I'm surprised every time Lisa and I connect, my cat Steve goes just crazy. He's all up in my space. He loves her energy. So I was grateful that he stayed in the hallway today through this. Everyone, thank you so much for holding space with Lisa and I. Please leave a comment of support and press a like. But for now, take care of your heart and souls in this wild journey of life. Thank you again, Lisa, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Right back at you.
Bye. Oh.